Yeah, this topic's near and dear to my heart, international localization teams. So I can't wait to hear it. Yeah, we're a little early, but what the hell? If you want, you can start whenever you want.
Sure, why
Oh, you're a
not?
little quiet. Can you get closer to the mic?
Yeah, work on that.
Mm.
Which is how about now?
Okay. Well, okay. That's good. Yeah, right up there
Cool.
is perfect.
Cool. Alrighty. So, I mean, I guess we'll get started. So right now I'm doing this on a laptop and my desktop is signed into Discord, but I'm using the monitor. So I can't look at Discord right now. Sorry if you have any interesting commentary or something during. I just have to look at that afterwards, I guess.
Well, come Q&A time, I'll read it out if you're not back. So you'll be
Yeah,
fine.
no, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to switch the monitor input and then
Okay,
you
cool.
can read them out. That's good. All right, cool. I guess I'll get started. So some of you know me, a lot of you don't, and but my name is Tinfoil. I was a contractor for some Just USA Aerogay back in the 2010 era of visual novel translations when like Manga Gamer got started and all this stuff started happening. I sort of left the scene in 2013, so a lot of what I'm about to tell you today may be out of date, and if it is, please point it out. Like if best practice has changed and stuff like that. So yeah. So today I'll be talking to you about the translation process of a particular set of fan turned official translation projects in around this era, and it's in two parts. So the first part is going to be a bit of story time for the context on like where I'm coming from with this and why we settled on certain processes instead of other ones. And then after that, we'll dive into like the actual mechanics of how these projects ran, how we organize ourselves, how we set up timelines, that kind of thing. I hope this is at the least interesting. Hope maybe useful, maybe just maybe useful for people who want to start working on VM translations or want to start breaking in or want to learn from the mistakes of the past. So yeah. So without further ado, I guess I'll get started. In 2009, the summer of 2009, something pretty cool happened where Just USA announced a partnership with Nitro Plus at Anime Expo. And within a couple of days of that, the Teal Wiki, which is a open media wiki instance where people just kind of edited script files as wiki pages, um, uh, received a cease and desist letter for all of the Nitro Plus projects on the website. And so we're like, oh, great. We don't want to stop working on these, though. So the staff for all the projects, or not all the projects, but most of the projects that were affected in IRC. And we got the idea to just kind of like, okay, we got the cease and desist letter, but is anybody at Anime Expo where the announcement took place? And nobody in the channel was, but we found somebody, like a friend of somebody, that was to literally talk to Peter Payne and be like, hey, you sent a cease and desist letter to a bunch of these fan translators. They want to work with you. Long story short, we got support Just USA's official localizations of Nitro Plus games, where, in essence, we would take the patches down because we would start working on the official translations for the Nitro Plus games that were affected, and some other ones more. So yeah, that's pretty much how it went. We just kind of were like, okay, let's talk to them and see if we can just start working on it officially because we wanted high quality translations and we thought we had high quality translations, so we wanted to make those the official real ones. I only worked on two of these. I only had a say in the Chaos Head project during these this tumultuous 4 days that we were like, oh no, what's the future of these translation projects? I started working on Sumaga afterwards, and not a this isn't a Nitro Plus project, but I worked on Osadai and the fan disk that got licensed by Just USA like a year later. So this is where I'm going to derive the experience and the things I'm going to say about the second part of this talk, which is the actual mechanics of how this translation project stuff happened. So without further ado, let's go it. So going legit was kind of a weird feeling because you just kind of had more problems at this point. You wanted to just release a translation, patch it up, and then when you put up the patch, you would be like, all right, that's done. I don't have to support it. I don't have to really care too much about it working in the future because somebody somewhere will get it working, right? No, this is a commercial project now. You have to negotiate the pay for the project with your client, and in this case, it was Just USA for us. And after you negotiated a dollar amount, I'm not going to say like exactly what it is, but like in like the way that it worked for Sumaga and Osadai is I got like some numbers from other fan translators turned official for their projects, and I just kind of like by kilobyte and by megabyte just was like, okay, if Sumaga I think is like 2.6 megabytes or something bigger like that, then you just do some multiplication and division and propose a multi-$1,000 amount for it. And so after you get that amount and you negotiate and be like, okay, well, let's both agree this is worth X amount of dollars, now you have to worry about splitting the pay between translation staff. And so this is kind of where like there was a payer hierarchy that kind of sprung up, where the most paid were the translators, the second paid were the editors, and it just got kind of like whoever was managing the project and making sure everything was okay at that point. The shorter end of the stick went to the asset and video editors because although it was a high skill position, usually, and this is a broad generalization here, usually there isn't that much work to do on the UI or things like that. It would just kind of be like a one-time thing. UI all works. Okay, don't touch that part of the project anymore. And then the shortest end of the stick was the quality control and auxiliary staff for the projects. And I mean, because it's like a low skill, low time commitment, kind of low effort kind of thing, just kind of filed into that bracket. I'll go into more detail about the positions later, but this is just kind of how like the pay works for us. And so going legit has other things happened. Getting paid means moving faster. So I hope you've got the time, because if you're working on it in your spare time, guess how much less spare time you have? Now you have even less than usual, because you have to start moving faster. There's a money amount. There's a deadline that you have to meet. There's all these things. So the overhead just kind of creeps in. Getting the people the game, like the actual game. So it's a fan translation project. You may or may not have purchased it. So that's a nice thought exercise to go through to try to get people the game legitimately if they don't have it. And this is an international staff I'm talking about here, so that's very fun. Handling anonymous and one-time contributions. So this is a kind of especially a problem on the TLWiki derived translations. So like, for example, Sumaga had dozens of people who contributed a translation to a file or two, but there are only about 2-3 main translators by the time we started working on it officially. So what we had to do was, in order, because we couldn't contact these people that were working on it, we had to just kind of retranslate those files so that their contributions never entered the official translation at the end. So it was just kind of like, it was a weird thing that we had to deal with. Staff on the payroll disappearing halfway. This one was kind of expected because sometimes like people who are working on the project for free generally do it on their own time, and so if this goes official, then not everybody would have as much time to accelerate the progress on the project. So yeah, so I hope that's interesting to somebody. Next thing, Next thing is organization, project organization. So translation projects that I worked on generally had 3 to 5 different project positions, depending on like the workload and stuff like that. So there will always be one or more translators, usually one. Most translators can handle a single large project, do it within about 2 to 3 months on average. And editors, if they existed, would kind of trail behind by like a script or two or a route or two or something like that, just to get a good feedback loop going between the two staff. Image asset and video editors and reverse engineers and programmers, very highly technical roles that really depend on what you're working on. So for a lot of the Nitro Plus games in particular, and this is like an open secret at this point, Nitro Plus lost the source code to the NSS2 engine, is whatever it was. So we were totally SOL on fixing bugs, on inserting scripts back in. So that we just used the tool chain that we were using the whole time anyway, because there's nothing really that we could have done to help remedy the problem on our end. But yeah, so in those cases, you really, really want a really good reverse engineer and programmer. And these people are super, super underpaid in the VN translation industry. It's a very high skill level. Like this kind of thing, you get paid much, much more than what you can get with the same amount of time in visual novels. So massive props to those people, to Nagato in particular, for helping out with all the Nitro Plus stuff and making Sayana Uta and all the other projects possible. But yeah, the reason why it's 3 to 5 and not all of the project positions existed at any point in time is usually sometimes the more veteran translators and editors would have only about 3 people working on it. You have the translator, you have the editor who did any images as they came past, and that would literally be a feedback loop between these 2 people because like the tool chain was already available from a different project. So these kinds of case-by-case situations would happen where staff would be really big or staff would be pretty small. Like it really depended on the project, and if you start working on something, you really should scope that out and find out how many people worked on similar size projects. So as you can see, project manager isn't any of these roles. I just kind of became one. I decided to head up like pay negotiation and all this stuff. But really, I was just an editor. That was what I was formally doing in most of these projects. So, I mean, I just kind of, I never applied online or anything like that. It just kind of organically, I became the person who spoke on behalf of everybody else for some reason. So yeah. So now you know how things are organized. It's easier for me now to talk about workflow, to talk about how the actual work of visual novel translation happened. And so a lot of this stuff is really obvious, but it's good to formalize these kinds of things. So first part of the thing, say you've got a project that you have to work on. Some people have read it, some people haven't read it. Maybe you had to bring on another translator from your contractor because it's huge or something like that. So the first part would be the initial read and analysis, where the translators and the editors would read the whole thing if possible. Maybe your editors don't know Japanese, so they can't really read it. Maybe they do, so they just do it as well. So they would just go read the whole thing. At the same time, image editors and reverse engineers would start seeing, trying to estimating workloads, see if you can extract the game files pretty easily, or maybe it's really hard, who really knows. And in this process, the translator would make notes of things that might be difficult. So this would be like VN or franchise-specific vocabulary, like some sci-fi stuff. Maybe there's a good pun or like a good thing that you really want to make it. You really want to make this pun work in English at the end of the day. Maybe, yeah, so stuff like that would happen first. And as soon as all of that stuff is done, you kind of have all this stuff, all this data available. You can scope out the project, set deadlines, all that stuff. And after that, you just start working. So the translator would start translating, the editor trails the translator or translators pretty closely behind so that you can give them feedback being like, okay, this didn't really work, why didn't it work? And the translator would go back and be like, oh, it's vocabulary for this thing, it's fine. Just these kinds of discussions would And quality control during the work segment would wait until segments were done to just start doing things. Image editor would be working the entire time, just translating UI elements first, or not translating, but editing UI elements first, and all these things, and CGs as you encounter them, that kind of stuff would happen. And then the quality control would go through and be like, okay, this is kind of a copy editor role where they go look in, they make sure it all makes sense, that they're not completely lost, that kind of stuff. And that would hopefully conclude the end of your work. At the end, everybody reads it again. It's pretty simple. You all read it again, and hopefully you didn't make any errors. And that section was pretty valuable in 2010, 2011, because patching was not something we could do, really, like realistically for many people, because we weren't, just USA's games weren't on Steam. So you just kind of had to try to get it as correctly as possible for, like, when you do the Golden Master, when CDs are getting printed. So that's that was the wrinkle in time for that. Some other version workflow things we did were switch to version control. So it was on the wiki, so we have like line by line history of what changed, right? And some of the things that we wanted going forward were the same fidelity in finding out how much someone did, what exactly changed, whose fault was one thing or another. And so we entered all of our files, images, scripts, everything, translation files, which were the special format we used, into version control, particularly Subversion, because it was easy to pick up for people who were non-technical. There weren't these, for the technical people in the audience, there weren't these concepts of Git branches and forks and all this garbage that people had to think about. With Subversion, we just all committed to trunk, and that was it. Excuse me. And so yeah, just to talk about this little screenshot from Osadai for a minute. So yeah, this is the actual translation file from Osadai. This is a couple of lines. This is a change that I think I made probably at one point to reword a bit of the translation to make it not as stilted, more concise, that kind of thing. And so this kind of fidelity is a good proof of work for your client as well, because we would give somebody from JAS access to read so they can check up on stuff and kind of have a measure on the progress of the project without having to ask any of us directly. So yeah, a couple of miscellaneous things to talk about. The only time I ever met anybody on my team was at Anime Expo. I met one guy, Piriko. He lives in. He was a quality control person on Osadai. I haven't really met anybody else that I've ever worked with, and I've never met them all at the same time. The only time, well, actually one time. The one time per project we all met was during intra-team pay negotiations, where we had to split X $1,000 like 7 ways or 4 ways or 5 ways or something like that. And we just kind of had to all be there to discuss. So yeah, that's all I got. Here's my contact info. I'm Evil Tape on the President-elect's press release platform. And there's my email. So hope you found this interesting, everybody.
Well, I found it interesting, but then I work in this field.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, but yeah, I'll take questions now. I can see Discord if you want to ask me anything.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you, just like you mentioned about translation quality, and I know I have opinions about this, but what did you feel like going from like fan to pro and seeing more translations over time? Like, what's your feeling of just what the quality is?
So when you go pro, I guess, or start doing things officially, there's more of, I don't know, I felt like you had to do a better job, you know, because now this is going to be the one thing. Like, this is the localization from Japanese to English, and you're in charge kind of feeling is what I had. With fan translation projects, it'd be like, okay, it's this one project's opinion on what it should be. But you know how mad people got about the Final Fantasy stuff, so. Yeah. So those are my thoughts on translation quality and how it kind of has a responsibility to be better, I guess. So where's the best place to start to translate your game into other languages? So uh, I never produced anything originally in visual novels. It was all just translation stuff. I don't know how to answer that question.
I can jump in and say that in general, if you're trying to figure out what language, figure out where the people are, right? Like in terms of customers, and just focus there. And there's a cost aspect too, but you don't want to translate into a language that only has 500 speakers, probably, unless you really like that language.
Yeah, or you speak it or something like that, right? What's my opinion of localization of slang and culture? So this is really funny because in Osedai there was a lot of timely, like super timely, like snapshot of two channel or two chan in 2008, I guess is when it got released. So it was just like no holds barred. This game is full of jokes anyway. Just put in 4chan memes and stuff. It'll be great, right? So that was really great because it was in the like in context, it made sense. For like serious stuff, then just localize it for Americans. It's usually a safe bet, I would say. The of characterization in Fire Emblem and Backlash. Yeah, I don't know. It's really all up to the person that decided like this is what I think these characters should be in this language, right? Because translators are also writers. They have to decide whether to translate literally like line for line this dry Japanese passive voice line into something with like should they make an active voice now, that kind of those kinds of calls you have to make. Is Song of Sayana just anymore? Sayana Uta, I actually don't know. I bought it a while ago and I just kind of have the disc. Let's see. Pro translation has business influence. So yeah, from Shinji, yeah. So pro translation has business influence, but like it's there. I feel like there's more of a personal responsibility to get it right, especially for fans of the piece of work they're working on. So yeah, I don't know. If you have really bad deadlines, you should just say no. Is what my point, my personal approach of it. How common is it that the original developers don't conserve their game resources? All the time.
Oh yeah.
Almost every project.
Oh yeah.
For Alcott, for the Osadai projects, we got really lucky on those. They just had, it was in Kirikiri 2, which is an open source engine. So we could they had only a couple of customizations, like some weird DRM. We literally cracked the game so that we could play it and release it, I think. And then they did additional work to make sure that it worked in Windows 7 on US and UK locales. I think that was all that happened there. How problematic are memes in the proper place? It has to make sense in context. Like if you got a joke and it's a timely joke, like if the joke is literally something like only 90s kids will know this, you put that there because that's what they meant. That's what they intended to do when they wrote this thing. What did they provide us with? Yeah, these were all fan translation projects turned official, so we started with our own food chains. Do you select products and pursue work, or do more devs come to you? So I just was like, oh, Osadai is a fun game. It's literally gender bent Putin and Obama. Let's do it. And then it got licensed. It's not really, I didn't really intend one way or the other. Yeah. I think I read all the questions. Let me scroll back to make sure. Yeah, no, Osadai had no reason to be any better than a new EA really, but they somehow. Is this my full-time job? No. My full-time job is in Silicon Valley doing programming security things. At around 2014, 2013, I kind of just changed the direction of my life and free time, so I don't really work on VMs anymore. I still like them and play them every now and then, but not as frequently as I used to.